Welcome back to the channel. Today we dive into the deep and dark waters to uncover the three real scariest fishing stories that will haunt you forever. These aren't your typical tales of the one that got away. These are encounters with the unexplained, the terrifying, and the downright bone-chilling. Imagine being miles from shore, surrounded by an endless expanse of water when something goes terribly wrong. The sea is a vast and mysterious place, holding secrets that we may never fully comprehend. From ghostly apparitions on desolate waters to monstrous entities lurking beneath the waves, these accounts serve as a stark reminder of the ocean's formidable power. If you love spine-chilling tales, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Your support helps us bring more of these strange, dark and mysterious stories to light. Now let's cast our lines into the abyss and see what horrors we can reel in. Our story takes us to the frigid waters of the North Atlantic, known for its sudden storms and treacherous conditions. Two experienced fishermen, brothers Tom and Liam, had been sailing these waters their entire lives. They thought they'd seen everything the ocean could throw at them. But one foggy morning in late October, they encountered something that defied all logic. They set out before dawn, the air thick with a damp chill. Their trawler, the Sea Serpent, chugged along, its engine a comforting thrum. As the sun struggled to pierce the clouds, thick fog rolled in, reducing visibility. Tom navigated by instruments while Liam prepared the nets. Suddenly their radar pinged, indicating a large stationary object nearby. They were far from shipping lanes. Tom squinted into the fog but saw nothing. He checked the radar again. It was big, much bigger than their trawler. He called out to Liam, his voice tight with apprehension. Liam joined him in the wheelhouse and they stared at the radar screen, then out into the fog. The object wasn't moving, and it wasn't transmitting any AIS signal. Slowly, Tom nudged the Sea Serpent closer. A colossal shape materialized out of the fog, like a phantom rising from the depths. It was an old rusted freighter, its paint peeling, streaks of rust weeping down its hull. It loomed over them, silent and imposing. There were no lights, no signs of life, no sounds of engines or crew. Liam hailed it on the radio. Only static answered. The brothers exchanged worried glances. A ship this size, completely unresponsive, it was unsettling. They decided to circle it slowly, looking for any indication of what might be wrong. As they drew alongside, the sheer scale of the freighter became apparent. It was easily 3 or 4 times the length of their boat, and it looked like it had been through hell. The railings were bent and broken, and a section of the superstructure had fire damage. What was chilling was the profound silence. No creak of the hull, no slap of waves, no hum of generators. It was as if the ship was holding its breath. Liam scanned the decks with binoculars. They were empty. The lifeboats were still in their davits, though one looked damaged. Then Tom pointed towards the stern. "Look," he whispered. Scrawled in faded paint, or perhaps rust, was a name: the Oroetus. Neither of them had heard of it, and a quick search yielded nothing. It was as if the ship didn't officially exist. As they passed by a row of portholes, Liam swore he saw a flicker of movement, like a pale face peering out, only to vanish instantly. He blinked, wondering if the fog was playing tricks. He mentioned it to Tom, who hadn't seen anything but was now more on edge. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed from the freighter as if something heavy had fallen. Both brothers jumped. The sound was jarring in the silence. Fear pierced through their unease. Tom, his face pale, looked at Liam. "We need to get out of here," he said, his voice strained. Our second story comes from the sun-drenched waters of the Gulf of Mexico, a popular spot for deep-sea fishing. It involves a charter boat captain named Marcus Mac McAllister, a seasoned angler with decades of experience, and 2 clients, a father and son duo, David and young Alex, out for a day of thrilling sport fishing. They were hoping to catch a marlin or a large tuna, but what they hooked was something far beyond their wildest nightmares. The day started perfectly. The sun was bright, the sea was a brilliant azure, and the mood on Mac's boat, the Fanatic, was light and optimistic. They motored out several miles from shore to a spot where Mac had previously had great luck. Lines were cast, beers were opened, for the adults of course, and the anticipation of a big catch filled the air. Young Alex was particularly excited, his eyes wide with the thrill of the open ocean. For a few hours they had some minor action, a few smaller fish quickly released. Then, just as lunchtime approached, one of the heavy-duty rods, rigged for big game, suddenly bent over with an alarming violence, the reels screaming as line tore out at an incredible speed. Mac, who was in the cabin, rushed out, his eyes lighting up. "This is it!" he yelled. "This is the big one!" David grabbed the rod, strapping himself into the fighting chair, his muscles straining against the immense power on the other end of the line. The fish, whatever it was not just big, it was colossal, pulling with a strength that David, a strong man himself, found almost overwhelming. Mac expertly maneuvered the boat, trying to help David gain some line, but the creature below was relentless. For the first hour it was a brutal tug-of-war. The unseen thing in the depths would take hundreds of yards of line in powerful, sustained runs. Then David would painstakingly reel some of it back, his arms burning, sweat pouring down his face. Alex watched, a mixture of awe and fear in his eyes. Even Mac, who had seen his share of big fish, was starting to look concerned by the sheer, unrelenting power they were up against. He muttered, "I've never felt anything like this. Not a marlin, not a shark. This is something else." The line was the strongest test they had, rated for well over 1,000 pounds, and it was stretched taut, humming with tension. The drag on the reel was set high, yet the creature pulled as if it were nothing. What could possibly be down there with that kind of strength and stamina? As the second hour of the fight wore on, the creature began to change tactics. Instead of long runs, it started to dive deep, pulling straight down with incredible force, making the boat list precariously to one side. David was groaning with effort, his knuckles white as he gripped the rod. Mac kept a close eye on the line angle and the strain on the equipment, worried something might give. Then the creature began to circle, slowly, ponderously, deep beneath the boat. They could feel its immense weight, a dead, heavy pressure that was more terrifying than the fast runs. It was as if something truly ancient and massive was down there, inspecting them, toying with them. The mood on the boat had shifted from excitement to a grim, nervous tension. The sun beat down, but a chill had settled over them. Mac tried to get a reading on his fish finder, but the screen was just a jumble of static and distorted shapes whenever the creature was directly below them, as if it was emitting some kind of interference. This only added to the growing sense of unease. What were they actually tethered to? The vibrant blue of the Gulf suddenly seemed to hide a much darker, more menacing secret. Young Alex, who had been quiet for a while, suddenly pointed a trembling finger at the water beside the boat. "Dad, Captain Mac, look," he whispered, his voice barely audible. About 20 feet away from the boat, a huge, dark shape, impossibly large, momentarily broke the surface before sinking back down. It was too quick to get a clear view, but it was vast, far bigger than any shark or whale they had ever seen or heard of. It wasn't the sleek form of a whale or the distinct dorsal fin of a large shark. This was different, more primal. The glimpse was fleeting, but it left an impression of immense bulk and a texture that wasn't smooth. Mac and David exchanged a look of disbelief and dawning horror. The thing they were fighting wasn't just a big fish, it was a behemoth, something that shouldn't exist. The creature then began to pull with renewed, terrifying strength, dragging the boat, a 40-foot sport fisher, sideways through the water as if it were a toy. The engines, even in reverse, could barely slow their forced movement. Panic started to set in. This wasn't fishing anymore, this was a struggle for survival against an unknown leviathan. David, exhausted and scared, wanted to cut the line. "Mac, we have to cut it, this thing is going to pull us under," he yelled, his voice hoarse. Mac, though visibly shaken, hesitated. Cutting the line felt like admitting defeat, but the safety of his clients and his boat was paramount. He reached for the heavy-duty line cutters. Just as he was about to sever the... Chapter 3. The Vanishing Fisherman. Our final story is perhaps the most unsettling, as it deals with the inexplicable disappearance of a solo fisherman, leaving behind only questions and a chilling void. This took place off the coast of Maine, a region known for its rugged coastline, thick fogs, and the solitary nature of its lobster fishermen. The man in question was named Elias Thorne, a quiet, experienced fisherman in his late 50s, who knew these waters like the back of his hand. Elias was a creature of habit. Every morning, well before sunrise, he'd take his small, well-maintained lobster boat, the Salty Dog, out to check his traps. He always went alone, preferring his own company and the peace of the early morning sea. He was known in the small coastal town of Port Clyde as a reliable, if somewhat reclusive, man. One crisp September morning, Elias set out as usual. The weather was calm, a slight chill in the air, with good visibility. He radioed the harbour master, a routine check-in, stating his plans for the day and his expected return time in the late afternoon. Nothing in his voice suggested anything was amiss. It was just another day on the water for Elias Thorne. His route was predictable. He had a string of lobster traps set in a particular line, about 5 miles offshore, near a cluster of small, uninhabited islands. He'd work his way down the line, hauling, rebaiting and resetting, a rhythm he'd followed for over 30 years. Other fishermen in the area knew his patterns and often saw his boat from a distance. That afternoon, when Elias failed to return by his stated time, the harbour master, a friend of his named Jeb, wasn't immediately alarmed. Elias was sometimes a bit late, especially if the catch was good or if he had minor engine trouble, he could fix himself. But as dusk began to settle and there was still no sign of the salty dog and no further radio contact, Jeb started to worry. He tried hailing Elias on the radio repeatedly, no response. He called Elias's simple cottage near the harbour, no answer. A knot of unease tightened in Jeb's stomach. Elias was meticulous about his timings and communication. This was not like him at all. By nightfall, with still no word, Jeb officially reported Elias Thorne missing to the Coast Guard. A search and rescue operation was launched immediately. Coast Guard cutters and aircraft, along with several local fishing boats crewed by worried friends and colleagues of Elias, scoured the waters throughout the night and into the next day. They focused on his known fishing grounds, his usual routes, and the areas around the small islands he frequented. The following morning, one of the search boats found the salty dog. It was adrift, about 2 miles from Elias's outermost traps, gently bobbing in the calm sea. There was no sign of Elias. The boat itself was in perfect order. The engine was off, but it started right up when tested. There was fuel in the tank. The radio was working perfectly. On deck, things were even more puzzling. A half-eaten sandwich and a thermos of still warm coffee sat on a small ledge near the helm, suggesting Elias had been interrupted mid-meal. His fishing gear was neatly stowed, except for one lobster trap that was on deck, partially hauled, its contents, a few decent-sized lobsters, still inside. It looked as if he had simply stepped away from his task for a moment. There were no signs of a struggle, no damage to the boat, no blood, nothing to indicate an accident or foul play. His life jacket, which he was known to wear religiously, was missing, leading some to initially hope he might have fallen overboard and was using it to stay afloat. But extensive searches of the surrounding waters and the shorelines of the nearby islands yielded absolutely nothing. And there you have it. 3 stories from the deep that I hope have sent a shiver or two down your spine. From the spectral silence of a ghost ship to the terrifying power of an unknown leviathan and the utterly baffling disappearance of a seasoned fisherman, these accounts remind us that the ocean is a world unto itself, full of mysteries we may never unravel. Thanks for watching. If these stories gave you chills, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts, or perhaps even your own unsettling encounters on the water. These tales are more than just scary stories. They are echoes from that abyss, whispers of encounters that defy easy explanation and linger long after the tale is told. What do you think happened in these cases? Was it supernatural, an undiscovered creature, or something else entirely? Remember, the world is full of strange, dark, and mysterious things, and sometimes they're waiting just beneath the surface. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to never miss an update on our latest scary stories. Until next time, stay safe and keep your lines tight, or maybe, just maybe, stay on shore after hearing these.